my name's Amanda and this is Maddie, and I'm here at the Vet Tech Emergency Clinic where Maddie is a 5-year-old spayed female and presented to the clinic with a pretty nasty bite wound to her arm. So you can see across her radius right here that she has a pretty good bite wound from another dog. So what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and clean it up for her and get her all wrapped up with a modified Robert Jones bandage. Alright, so today for her cleaning process, what we've gone ahead and done is we've made a 0.05 chlorhexidine solution followed by some alcohol. And alcohol might burn her just a little bit, but we want to ensure that there's not going to be any infections present in the wound when we bandaged it up. We also want to allow for no desiccation of tissue, but we also want to allow the granulation process to begin. Alright, so first we're going to start with our chlorhexidine so that way we can clean off all the blood that's present within the wound. And since I am my restrainer as well, I can't do a super sterile scrub and go ahead and switch between hands. So what I'm still going to do is start from the middle and work my way on the outer edges. It's important with you using your chlorhexidine scrub that you're removing all debris. So by doing this, when we use our circular rotation, we want to make sure that each time we pass the wound and also start a new circle, we want to use a new piece of our gauze. And now I'm going to go ahead and start the alcohol process now that all the visible debris has been cleaned out of the wound. So again, we start from the middle and work our way out. Alright, and as you can see, our wound has been properly cleaned. Alright, so now I'm going to go ahead and close these up, get them out of the way, and we're going to start bandaging our patient up. So the first thing we need to do is make sure that we have proper supplies. Here at this hospital, we normally keep emergency kits for things like this. So what we need is we need some scissors that are going to be able to cut through our bandaging. We have some tape. We also have a tongue depressor because the way we do our modified Robert Jones is we use tape stirrups and it allows for the tape to not stick to the patient as much. We have some rolled gauze, some vet wrap, and also some cast padding. And since our patient did present to us with a laceration, we're also going to apply a Telfa-Pad. So the Telfa-Pad is the most important step in the first primary layer, because it allows for any debris that may or could still be in the wound to be extracted from that wound, and it'll absorb into the Telfa-Pad so that way it's not in our wound during the granulation process. Alright, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to reposition myself to make her feel a little more comfortable, and I'm just going to wrap my leg around her so she's a little more stable. Also, what we need to watch with the Telfa-Pads is any latex allergies that our patient could have to the skin. So right now what we're going to do is apply this to where our primary entrance site of our wound is. And I'm just going to hold that there so that way my hands don't actually have to touch not only the main entrance of the wound, but the padding itself. And as you can see, a modified Robert Jones for our tape stirrups is also going to work because the wound is on the side aspect of the limb. Alright, so the first step to a modified Robert Jones is our tape. So I'm going to go ahead and get our tape out and the tongue depressor. So what we do with the tape is we're going to measure from the middle of the animal's front limb and then also halfway down. So we're going to want our tape to be from the middle, and then we're going to want to have enough room so that way when we wrap it around our patient, we'll have a nice U shape. Go ahead and rip that right there. And with our tongue depressor, you can see that the sticky side is going to be taped to the tongue depressor so that way when the dorsal aspect of the tape goes on, it doesn't stick to itself and it has a surface to stick on. This will also help us in future process when we reflect our stirrups. And with the Telfa pad being in place, what I'm going to do is make sure that the tape does not actually hit the wound itself, which it doesn't, so that's good in our case. And now that our tape is in place on the dorsal and ventral aspects of the limb, we are just going to put our tongue depressor face up and face down on the tape. The next step that we're going to do is the cast padding. So that's our thicker layer, that's our secondary layer. With this, we do 2 layers of it, not only to help bandage the wound, but it's also for stabilization. So with the cast padding, what is important for us to do is make sure, come here, sweetheart. Make sure that when we roll it around our patient's limb, it's a 50-50 ratio. So that means when we roll, we need to make sure 50% of the covered surface is already covered and then new additional limb is being covered 50 way. Also, with the cast padding, we need to make sure that when we're covering the limb, that we start towards the distal end of the limb and work our way cranially towards the body, so that way if there's any inflammatory fluid within the limb, we are pushing it up to the body to be absorbed by the body and not down that way to be absorbed by her paw. Alright, so now I'm going to begin to apply, and it's important with the bandaging process that we make sure that we're leaving the paw out, because we need to assess how tight the bandage actually is. So with this, what we're going to do is we're going to start at the distal aspect, we're going to work our way up, and again we're making sure that our technique is okay. So we're doing a 50-50 mixture. And anytime we bandage, we as well need to make sure that we're doing the joints above and below. Alright, so now we're at the portion of the limb where our Telfa pad is in place on the wound. So with that, I'm going to hold with my index and thumb and still doing my 50-50 mixture. I'm going to go around making sure that I secure the padding. then we come back down the limb. Again, it's still our 50-50 mixture. Alright, now that the cast padding is on, we're going to go ahead and apply our next layer, which is our conforming tertiary layer. Alright, the next step we're going to do is our tertiary conforming layer, which is our rolled gauze. So again, we're going to start at the distal aspect of the limb, continue our 50-50 mixture, and work our way up. The reason we do rolled gauze is to add a little bit of pressure to the bandage itself. Again, we don't want to lose any blood supply to the limb, but we need to make sure that the padding is in place and going to give some stabilization to the limb. So again, we're using the joints above and below. And we only do one layer of our rolled gauze. So we have a little bit of extra, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to cut it. So now that our conforming tertiary rolled gauze layer is on, what we're going to do is reflect our tape stirrups. So with this, that's when the tongue depressor comes in handy, because to avoid areas like this where our tape is sticking together, we have the tongue depressor that just allows us for easy peel off. So in order to reflect our tape dispensers, what we're going to do is we're going to make a U shape. So here's the first part of the U, and now what we're going to do is do a 180-degree turn on our tape. Hold on, sweetheart. And then reflect it back up the limb. And it should only be about halfway up the limb, so since I have extra tape, what I'm going to do is cut it off. And then we do the same thing for the distal portion as well. Just a little too much tape, so now we're going to cut that. Alright, now we're ready for our tertiary protective layer, which is our vet wrap. So I've gone ahead and I've opened this up, and what I did was I unwrapped it and then rewrapped it back up. If you can see, it allows for the vet wrap to not be as tightly bound, so it allows us to easily unroll it onto our patient. So what we're going to do is we're going to start again distal to proximal. And again, for the vet wrap, it's still a 50-50 mixture. And the vet wrap makes it a little easier to see your 50-50 mixture just for the simple fact that you can see the color change. So towards the top here it's lighter because it's only a 50 mixture, but down here we have both 50-50, so it's darker in color. as you can see, now that we're at the top, the vet wrap's falling down a little. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna go ahead and cut this right here. In our next layer, what we would do is we're gonna add some elasticon to the top, so that allows for the vet wrap and to stick to the fur just a little bit better. Alrighty, and to assess to see how tight your bandage is, it's important that we make sure that this is okay for several reasons. We don't want it to be too loose because it's not going to provide proper stabilization. We also don't want it too tight because we don't, again, want to cut off any blood supply to any vessels down within this limb. So what we're going to do is stick our finger in the top and bottom portions, and as you can see, right in here, I'm able to get the first knuckle in, so that's how we know it's at perfect tightness. And same right here under the elasticon. Perfect tightness. And now Maddie's ready to go home, and we're going to check on her in a couple days when she comes back to assess how her laceration is doing and again how the bones are healing. Alright, and the last thing that we're going to do is just explain to our owner that when she stands up, she might experience a little bit of limb discombobulation, but that's okay. So with that, what I mean is when she stands up, she's probably going to feel a little bit of pressure difference, so her pads aren't going to feel the same pressure as her other three. So she might walk a little funny, but that's expected to be normal. So let's see if we can go ahead and get her up now. Come on. Come on.